one thing that gets me crying and emotional and lets things out is Grey's Anatomy. So I've been watching more Grey's Anatomy just to get my like emotions out and cry and like feel better. And then I'm like, okay, I got my cry for the month or whatever. Welcome to the Physio Diaries podcast with your hosts, Dr. Melanie Ziaziris and
Dr. Alice Koshabansky, where we talk about spicy healthcare topics, wellness, and life, all while traveling across the country.
Welcome back to the Physio Diaries podcast. We are at lucky number 13, and today we wanted to talk about something different and very real in our profession as physical therapists, but all healthcare workers, like the whole spectrum of healthcare professionals, and even other, like all the therapies. And that is compassion fatigue, mental health, and psychosocial issues to patient care and ourselves. So dealing with like more difficult patients and all of that fun, heavy stuff we deal with on a daily basis, dealing with people.
Yes.
But before we start to spill some major tea, we got to debrief per usual.
Yeah.
And it is officially the holiday season, which is crazy. November just like blew by. I hate when November hits because it feels like 2 days go by and then boom, it's the new year.
It's crazy. I'm like insanely busy. I'm like, how is it already December? That's crazy. Well, November 30th when we're filming this.
Yeah.
But it is crazy. Like, honestly, I feel like we blinked because I celebrated New Year's in Hawaii. And
God, yeah.
I feel like I was just there, just watching the fireworks. Like, it's so crazy how fast this year has flown by. Like, we blinked. What happened to it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's too fast.
Yeah.
But speaking of holidays, I'm actually decorating for the first time in, I think, 4 years.
Wow.
If even. Maybe more than 4 years.
Yeah.
Every year I've been in a different place. Obviously, I'm in Florida right now. Last year, I was in Atlanta. The year before that, I was in Chicago-ish and Houston. Actually, yeah, Houston. The year before that, Chicago. And then the year before that, either Chicago or Ohio. But yes, so a lot of different places and states. And I usually am like, whatever, what is there to decorate? Like I'm only here short term. But this year, I got a real tree.
Isn't it amazing?
It's so weird. I've never had a real tree. I don't think
I
like
love
ever.
a real tree. Like, okay, I think
it smells
artificial,
so good.
It smells so good.
Yeah.
But artificial trees, they're beautiful and they're perfect and they don't make a mess, which is huge for me.
Yeah,
but
true.
We always had a real tree growing up. Like we put up a tree for New Year's and we always would get a real tree and we would wait until after Christmas to get it when they would just toss the rest of them.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, I totally forgot to tell you this, but I had a real tree in Chicago in my high-rise building.
Oh, that was real. Wait, when I was living with you?
Real. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, because when did you move in? When was that?
I literally moved in like December, but it was.
Yes. That was a real
because I was in New York
tree. But then you you moved in and then you went on vacation, right?
Yes.
Because you dropped off all your stuff and then went on vacation. But I think I may have gotten right. I'm like, oh, okay, hi, bye. But anyways, I think 99% of people in my building had an artificial tree because of this. But a little old me was like, I'm going to get a real tree. It's like a tradition for my family. And now I'm going to have my own and everything. I hauled this tree in. It was literally like a tree. I brought it through the front door by the guy at the front desk, hauled it into the elevators, hauled it upstairs, and it made a little bit of a mess, but it was still like a fresh tree. So it was fine, but nobody else did this, okay? Then I had it up for maybe a month or two because I put it up kind of early and then took it down after New Year's. It was so freaking dry. There was needles everywhere. And I found needles up until the last day that I moved out of that apartment.
Really?
Yeah, it made an entire trail of needles. Even though I put it in a bag, all that broke. Like the bag broke, it got cut. It was just a hot mess express, getting it to the 32nd floor of my building and then getting it down. And I just remember people being like, damn, like, what was she thinking? But I
Dang.
still would say I'm a real tree girly. Like you can't beat the smell of a real tree. Like I think
Right.
it's worth it to have to
And
clean
like
it up.
O2, fresh air, like
Yes.
purification a little bit.
I know. Okay, is it weird for you to be celebrating the holidays and everything when it's like 75 degrees outside?
Bro, it was so weird. Literally putting this Christmas tree into the car,
Yeah.
staring at palm trees,
Yeah.
wearing short sleeves. I was like, what the heck is this?
Like it's summer.
But what I was going to say was I was actually debating on getting artificial tree, but I have been really practicing low tox living. So like really trying to eliminate as many plastics and additives and harmful chemicals around. So I was like, I would feel so bad getting an artificial tree when I'm trying to practice low tox living. I might as well just get a real one. And honestly, it was only $70.
Yeah.
So it was like pretty cheap.
I know.
So,
and honestly,
like,
they're
well.
so beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
it's just awesome to have like an actual tree in your house. Like, when else are you going to do that? You know?
Yes, exactly.
I'm excited to see you decorate. You need to post
I know.
it.
I will.
Oh,
I
can't
will.
wait.
I got stockings. I'm gonna do some
Oh,
simple but cute decorations.
yeah. I'm so excited. I'm a huge decorator, but
Yes, you
I
were. Oh my gosh.
decided, yeah, I would decorate. My favorite holiday to
told me.
decorate for is fall, and I still have my fall decorations up. But I decided I'm not going to decorate this year. And that's a first for me. But it's only because we have to move out basically January 5th.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
And I just don't want to have all
Dang.
this stuff. Like, I can't have a tree. Like, we only have one car that we travel with, and I don't have room for a tree because I
Right.
probably would get an artificial one just because, like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's
You don't
fair.
know where we're going to be or like, and so we just don't have the room. And I'm like, you know what? No tree this year. But we're also going to be moving early January. So I'm like, that's just one less thing to have to take down and
Yeah.
worry about. So
It's like a month away.
I know. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
I have 5 weeks left here. Like, what the
wild.
heck? Like, where did the time go? I don't know.
Yeah.
Ugh. But anyways.
But I'm excited for Chicago. It's gonna be so soon. I'll get to see you.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait. Like, I feel like I pretty much see you because we do this weekly, but like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't wait to be together.
And it's different in person.
It does. And we have an exciting event planned, and we're
Yes.
obviously going to record in-person podcasts at any chance that we get. So yeah, I'm excited for Mel to be back in Chicago.
We can finally take new content.
I know. We desperately need it.
And for those listening, we are planning a little healthcare professional meetup group. Still trying to think of a clever name for this meetup, but it will be for healthcare professionals in the Chicago area. So DM us, message us if you're interested.
Yes, we would love to hang out and actually get to know you guys because we see all your content. We're up to date on the Chicago content, and we've been looking for people to get on the podcast, first of all, but then also just to hang out with and just network with. You don't even have to be in the healthcare field. Like, just anyone that's interested in health, like wellness, at really anything, like reach out and let us know. But it was just Thanksgiving, and I had a great Thanksgiving. We ate lots of food. This year, so usually I'm not mainly in charge of desserts, but like the one person that makes a lot of the desserts did not come to our Thanksgiving this year. And so my grandma was like, just make more. And so we decided to make 3 different things this year for dessert. I make this beautiful fruit turkey. I started it like years ago, actually. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's so worth it. Yeah, I need to post a picture.
Yeah.
And I'll send you one too. But so basically, I saw this years ago, and you basically create like the body of the turkey. You can take like I do a pineapple and I kind of take off the outside, or you could do like a cantaloupe or a melon. So Emily, my sister, kind of took over this tradition for me because I was like, okay, it's a lot of work. Like, you can do it if you want. But she wasn't here this year. So I was like, okay, fine. I'll do my fruit turkey again. And so you basically take a bunch of big like skewers, and you put different fruits on the skewers, and that acts as like the feathers. And then I use like a pear for the face, and it's beautiful. It's a great centerpiece for your table. And it's nice because usually Thanksgiving desserts are very heavy. It's like pies and cakes and cookies and Rice Krispie treats. And I made Oreo balls, but it's nice to have a variety and have a little bit of like fruit on the table.
Balance it out.
Yes. And all your colors. There's like 10 colors on that freaking fruit turkey.
Yeah.
And so then we made Oreo balls. And then my sister goes, Alice, do you want to make chocolate covered strawberries? I'm like, okay. And then she's like, we're going to make them in the shape of turkeys. And so the video that she saw, they turned out so cute, but like
they did look really good.
A little tiny disclaimer. If it says it's going to take you 20 minutes, add like another freaking 0 to that number because it took us like 3 hours.
Oh my God. Are you kidding?
Yeah. I mean, you have to like dip. You have to get little pretzel sticks. You have to stick them into like mini marshmallows. You dip the little stick into white chocolate. Then you have to put it in the freezer, take it out, dip the strawberries, freeze that.
Oh my.
Then you dip the little legs and attach them to the turkey. So it's like a whole thing.
Ugh, that hurts my soul, that process.
I know. It was like a whole process. It took us literally all day until basically we had to leave to Thanksgiving dinner. But everything turned out amazing. But the funny thing was, my grandma, well, my sister didn't tell my grandma what we were bringing because we usually bring the fruit turkey and the Oreo balls. But there was another lady that made chocolate covered strawberries. So we just had a shit ton of chocolate covered strawberries, which is like not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But it was great and everything turned out amazing. And I just like Thanksgiving. I don't love turkey, but I like Thanksgiving.
I feel that. It's like the only time I eat turkey.
Yeah, same. I had it again for lunch the next day and I was like, oh, like I can't have this again until next November. But anyways, it's exciting because like it marks like the start of the holidays and it's just a fun, cheery time and there's always lots happening. So
for sure.
Anyways, back to our topic of compassion fatigue that we mentioned, kind of a long time ago. So compassion fatigue is basically emotional withdrawal. And I remember they mentioned this in PT school, but I obviously had not been to that point yet and had no idea what they were talking about. And so it can be accompanied by mental and physical exhaustion. Maybe I'm a little exhausted. After caring for people who are sick or traumatized over a period of time, or apathy or indifference towards the suffering of others after an overexposure to tragedy and pain. So basically it's saying that you almost don't have the energy to care about others. That's how I would put it, like plain and simple. Like you were so fatigued because you've been giving so much of yourself to others and you like cannot possibly give more. That's kind of how I understand it.
Yeah, totally. It's like you're tapping out on emotions. Like you literally just can't anymore.
Yeah. And we have so many like personal experiences and personal stories that we can share about this now that we've been through it a little bit more and we're not students.
Yeah.
But some signs of compassion fatigue are blaming other people or your patients for their own suffering, complaining a lot about your life or about work, poor self-care, so self-habits, stress, which is a big one, muscle tension, difficulty concentrating, overeating, so that kind of goes with hand in hand with stress, difficulty sleeping, and then just suppressing your emotions. So we wanted you guys to be aware of some of those things because sometimes you don't realize like that you have this compassion fatigue in the moment until you're like, wait, like it's hard for me to basically give a shit, right? Like, we'll get into it. But anyway,
that was a good way to put it. Like
it's hard to like almost care. And it's not because you're a bad person. It's not because you're a bad clinician. It's just because of the nature of the profession. It's like, it's not, and I can't even imagine what it's like for therapists, like,
oh my God, yeah.
psychosocial or psychologists, because they're dealing with so much trauma and a lot of emotions. And they like have to constantly be on it and constantly like give to people. So, you know.
I always think about like the classic surgeon stereotype, right? Like surgeons are known for being like kind of straightforward kind of withdrawal, not as like cozy with you. But like if you have to think about what they do, like they literally have to detach to stay human to some capacity. Like I would do that if I was a surgeon. Like it would
Yeah.
be really hard to be like the most cheery, compassionate, super open, trying to get like really personal with patients because you just never know.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
yeah, I think any profession that deals with people every hour of the day can relate to this.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. But, in school, like if you're a student listening to this in any of the healthcare professions, like I don't know about other schools, but we talked about a little bit in physical therapy school. We had like psychosocial classes, and honestly, the classes should have been structured better. They were kind of structured as bullshit classes. So we kind of kept them as bullshit classes. So it was, you just
Yeah.
got through it, but didn't really fully listen all the time type of vibe. You know what I mean? So, but also like it's just hard to learn about this stuff without going through it yet. So
Exactly.
I think in school and out of school, obviously, like any profession, like it's going to be different learning in the classroom versus in the real world. So, we would kind of go over scenarios and whatnot, which we did get really helpful tools like motivational interviewing and kind of like different ways to like go about patients into some capacity. But how to deal with it internally is like really not something you learn about in school. And,
You can't. Like,
you
they
just
can't
can't.
even teach you that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, we did have a lot of patient scenarios and cases that they would give
Yeah.
us, and it was just it doesn't feel real when you have one of your faculty, at least, like, my first year, I remember we had faculty role playing as patients. And I just remember I couldn't take it seriously. Like we had
Yeah.
one of our faculty role playing somebody that we were in a home health setting and they were role playing somebody who had AIDS and was extremely depressed. And I just felt like I couldn't take them seriously just because I knew them as a person. And I'm like, this doesn't feel real, right?
Hmm.
Like it's a made up scenario. But in PT school, we did have a lot of patients that were role players and that were actually paid to be role players. And that I think helped me a lot more than when the faculty was actually role playing. I'm like,
Yeah, that's
you're just
fair.
like the kinesiology professor. Like, you're not a patient. And I know that. But
Yeah,
yeah, so there's a lot of role playing that goes on in PT school, which is interesting. And I don't know why I didn't expect. And so that was kind of, something to kind of
for
know.
sure.
But yeah, I don't think it's something that you can really teach, it's
No,
something
you
you
just
just
have
have
to
to
go through
learn.
it.
Yeah.
Obviously, the first like kind of start to getting it is like on clinical rotations. And that's like honestly one of the reasons why I can't be in the hospitals and why I refuse to do acute care is because I get such bad compassion fatigue where I'm just like, is this everything feels sad? Like you're lucky to get a person that has a great home environment,
I
is doing
know.
great post-op, like checks all the boxes, like ready to go discharge home and like
Yes.
outpatient PT. Like that is not the scenario most of the time. And I
Yeah.
like could not do it as an acute care therapist. And
Yeah. I was going to say, I found myself having to compartmentalize a lot more when I was in the hospital and in inpatient rehab. But I'll also get into this a little bit more later. But I would almost have to convince my brain that I was in a different world. And when I would step out of the hospital, it was like a breath of like fresh air. Like even the air felt like thicker. I don't know. But like I had to
yeah.
tell myself, like, this is a separate world. And then when you step out of it, like, I couldn't think about my patients. Like, even though I really wanted to, I'm like, nope, like that's totally separate. And also, if you think about it in the hospital, for most people, this is probably one of the worst days of their lives that you're
True.
seeing them.
Mhm.
And
They're
so
like
they're very
lowest
emotional.
lows.
Yeah. And like their family's usually there. And it's like, yeah, I agree that I'm sure that it happens a lot more in the hospital because you really have to kind of work with a lot of emotions and a lot of like stressful situations.
Yeah. Okay. You've definitely been in the hospitals more than I have. How would you compare outpatient versus like in the hospital compassion fatigue and just like the mental challenges?
Yeah, I mean, outpatient, I'm in most of my jobs. I really haven't gotten that compassion fatigue as much.
Mm, okay.
Maybe at this job a little bit more because I've had a lot of to me, when people start crying, that's what really will get
Oh
me.
my
And
gosh.
that's how I know I'm like, oh my gosh, girl. Like, I feel so fake responding to people sometimes when they start crying and they're like, I'm so sorry. Like, this is just really, and I don't know what to say. And you never, like, there's no right thing to say, but there's also really not like anything wrong to say. Like, it's just like your true emotions coming out when somebody starts crying. It's like, what do you do in that moment? Like, nothing can prepare you for that moment.
No.
No
And you never
amount
know.
of training. I
No.
always, this is my go-to. I'll be like, yeah, whatever, something like that's really tough. And I don't say I understand because they told us not to say that because
Yeah.
you don't
say you understand. You don't
That's one thing I
understand.
learned is you will never understand. You can say like, that must be really hard, or that sounds really tough for you. And if they cry, I'll usually offer them a tissue and they always take it. And that usually makes them feel better.
True.
Or I'll be like, let's just take a couple deep breaths, or like, do you want some water?
Yeah. Sometimes depends on what they're like there for and like with a scenario, but like, well, most people, but if they're crying, oh my gosh, it's such a struggle too, because then they're like, oh, now I'm crying in the clinic and other people can see me. And I usually say something along the lines of like, I can't imagine what you're going through, but like, I'm glad you're here, or like, I'm glad you're,
Yes.
like taking this on and
you're addressing this.
treatment. Yeah. I've had like a really, oh my gosh, there was one clinic I have noticed. Let me know if you've noticed this or if you've seen differences in like the region the clinic is in and socioeconomic status and like more affluent versus not, because I have definitely seen a big difference in those different types of environments. But this one clinic I was at, I kid you not, the first week I got there, I swear 3 different patients told me they had multiple family members dying and all of these tragedies and traumas to family members and themselves. And I remember thinking like at the end of that week, like, this is like so bad to say, but like, I know others can relate, but like, I literally can't listen to any more people's trauma. Like I cannot, like, I just don't care anymore. I cannot, I can't keep hearing all of these people dying and it's so sad. And all of their stories are so sad. And I'm like, damn, like I just don't want to hear it anymore.
The thing is, too, I feel like most people that are PTs are very empathetic people. Like, we truly feel your emotions. Like, I know I'm a super empathetic person. And like, when someone's hurting, like, it physically hurts me too.
Yeah.
And like, when someone is upset, I start to get upset and I start to think like, oh my gosh, like you lost your mom, your wife, your like sister, your everybody. Like that must be so hard. And like, how are you still going? Like, I start to feel everything that they feel, but I've stopped doing that as much because that's where I noticed like I would reach like compassion fatigue where I'm like, wow, like I am literally like a little like soul, like I'm not, I don't know, like I'm thinking kind of like they can tell that I don't truly care. Like you might be saying the right words, but it kind of just sounds like you're a robot speaking, if that makes sense.
Like you're just saying it to say it because you have to.
Yeah. And then you're like, okay, now let's go on to the next exercise,
Right. Like you're dissociating, detaching, but like you still have to say it and try to show it. But then you're like, damn, I just can't handle this anymore.
I
like
know.
it's just a struggle.
But what I was going to say was, so we talked about like outpatient. And this was one clinical that I had when we were living together. And you saw how freaking hard that was for me when I was on the spinal cord injury unit.
Oh my gosh.
In a rehab hospital in Chicago. It was a underfunded hospital, like on the west side of Chicago. And it was just so sad. Like I could just tell all the therapists around me were kind of like overwhelmed and burnt out and just frustrated with the whole system. But like, especially working with spinal cord injury, it was tough. Like I had a lot of young patients, a lot of them suffered spinal cord injuries because of gunshot wounds. And so it was just tough. And so there's other rehab hospitals in Chicago that are very nice and they have different floors for every single diagnosis, like traumatic brain injury is separate from spinal cord injury, separate from stroke, is separate from everything else. At my hospital that I worked at, it was all together. We were all in one big gym. And I just remember sitting there with a kid who had a complete spinal cord injury. So most likely was not going to be able to regain the ability to walk in his lifetime. And then over on the next table, treatment table next to us, there's a 60, 70-year-old patient that had a stroke and is walking for the first time. And like, imagine how that feels to the patient with the spinal cord injury who's like just coming to terms with all of these new things that they have to learn and all the things that they're never going to be able to do again. And then you're watching somebody like 10 feet away from you, everybody's celebrating because they're taking their first couple steps since their stroke. So that's just an example. But overall, like that was just such an emotionally draining clinical. And I was there for 6 weeks and then I was pushed to outpatient, which I liked a lot better. But seriously, like I knew after that, that was not for me because I remember that was the only time I really broke down emotionally. Like I remember we were driving home and I was with like my sister and her boyfriend and they just asked me how my day was and I didn't even get a word out and I just started crying. Like I was like, oh my God, like all of these patients and in inpatient rehab, you're seeing them twice a day, every single day for the entirety of their stay. So like up to 6 weeks or whatever it is. Sometimes people stay longer. So you see them every day and it's just like, you get really close to them and you get to know them and you just feel so bad for them. And I just let it out. It just came out and they were like, holy shit. Like you clearly needed to get that out because even as a student, like it was tough. And I'm like, nope, this setting is not for me. Like I care. Not that the therapists don't care, but I just like, I couldn't stop thinking about the patients out of the clinic. Like I was falling asleep and thinking about this poor patient, how he's falling asleep or like how like, his family is doing or what the rest of his life is going to look like. And I'm like, Alice, stop it. Like you are not getting paid right now. You should not be thinking about your patients. Like just take that time to rest. But that was why I chose mostly outpatient because I was like, not for me.
Yeah.
Inpatient takes a special type of person.
I literally always think about nurses too, because they have to deal with so much shit, literally and figuratively.
Literally, yeah.
And I just like, I genuinely don't know how they do it. Like I commend them. And sometimes when there's like a nurse who like I see that acts or you perceive that they don't really care. I'm like, well, how many times have they had to deal with this shit? And like, how many times have they had to see maybe someone code blue or like, all of these traumas. So you like never know. And it's so hard.
Yeah.
But back to outpatient. Outside of like trauma, there is something about people coming in, complaining about their pain and not understanding pain science and having to explain pain science to people where you almost have to care more than them. And that is so mentally draining because you have to constantly repeat and explain pain science to people. And when I say pain science, I mean like there are certain mechanisms that happen in our body. There's certain things we do to help decrease pain, but that also can involve increasing the pain because we sometimes have to increase the pain to make someone better. And someone commented, I can't remember if it was Instagram or TikTok, but I think it was related to one of the surgery like reels. And they were talking about pain science related to like tendinopathies and low back pain. And that specifically is a separate thing on its own because like with tendinopathies, like you want to bring on pain to rebuild that tendon and break down those collagen fibers and rebuild them and all of that. And a lot of people get caught up in like it hurts so bad. And then all day you're constantly like, okay, this person has pain. This person's always complaining about pain. All you hear about is how people are in pain, which you're like, you have to differentiate the difference between different types of pain and why you're doing it. And then it's like,
So after my 6 weeks in inpatient rehab, I had 6 weeks in outpatient neuro/ortho because I had 2 different CIs. And one of my clinical instructors was like a chronic pain specialist. And she honestly really taught me that you do not want to focus on the pain. Even like at my job right now, I've been trying to stay away from asking about, I don't even use the word pain unless I absolutely have to. I will say, how are the symptoms or how are you feeling? I do not say, how's the pain? Because pain just has like almost, I swear, like this association in the brain. Like as soon as you hear the word pain, it probably ignites some center in your brain that And I don't want to draw attention to the pain too, but I think it
Right.
like ignites some center in the brain where it's like ding, 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 pain, you know? And so I've been literally trying to avoid talking about pain as much as possible. I want to talk about function. I want to talk about like symptoms overall. How are you feeling?
Yeah.
Not like how is your pain? Rate your pain. Like how I hate having to do that. And I wish we never had to do that, but still insurance companies like to see that as a metric.
Yeah.
But I hate talking about pain and I hate the word because it just makes me like, ugh, gross.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do spend a good amount of time of our day talking about it. And I've been trying to, especially in this job, like go away from that. But it's frustrating because one thing that we technically have to do because we're a hospital is ask about pain levels before and after treatment. And I don't always ask it. Like I'll
I
say
don't.
sometimes did not assess or did not quantify, but I will put functional measures like after manual therapy, was able to achieve this many degrees of range of motion or whatever and show improvement throughout the session, but not just in terms of pain, right? Because that's not all we care about, right?
Yeah, for sure. And going back to like compassion fatigue, when you're dealing with people that are in pain all day, every day, and like some patients are just like everything, every possible thing is going wrong. And it's so hard
Yeah.
to come back to it and like not focus on the pain. Cause if you focus too much on their pain, then you're like, well, fuck, like everyone's in pain and am I doing my job right? Am I like actually being a good PT? Like they shouldn't be in pain, but like they're going to be in pain because all of this is going on. And there's
Right.
just, yeah, pain has a bad association a lot of times for sure.
Yeah. I was gonna say too, like, I know a lot of therapists burn out because we're constantly dealing with people. And this is exactly what one of my coworkers, I remember said that she was like, we're talking about pain all day, every day. And it can be so draining and so exhausting
Yeah.
because it's draining for the patient, but then it's also really draining for the provider because we see back to back to back patients typically. And it's
Yeah.
like, you
No
might have a
breaks.
really emotional, hard conversation, a really hard session, and then you just bounce to the next one. And then that patient is having the same complaints and they're expecting, like, they're putting pressure on you, but then you're also putting pressure on yourself to get rid of that pain. But we're not miracle workers and no one knows that. Like, they think that, oh, we're going to touch your body and magically everything's going to disappear. But like, I wish that was the case, right? But sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be like, why is this person
Yeah.
still suffering? Like, why are they hurting? But honestly, like to me, the secret or what I do, I guess, is I don't want to say I don't care. I want to say more like I don't emphasize as much, like, why are they not feeling better right away? Like,
Yeah.
I don't put any pressure on myself.
Yeah.
I just tell myself, like, I'm doing my best and the patient has to do their part and we're going to give it our best shot. Right. And if they don't get better, of course, I still get frustrated. Or like if they end up needing surgery, of course, that's not ideal. But I always tell them that, or I tell myself too, I'm like, you still learned a lot because we do so much education. You're still coming out of this. I still see it as a win. Even if you needed surgery, you're going into surgery in a better position. You probably have more muscle mass, you're stronger, you're better equipped for things after surgery.
Yeah.
So I think part of it is just reframing your mind. And that's like where a
100%
lot of
mindset.
therapists can get stuck. They're like, oh my gosh, everyone's in pain and like people aren't getting better. And, like I
Yeah.
had to just change the way that I thought.
For sure. You have to, yeah, totally change your mindset on things like you cannot help everyone. You will not help everyone. If you think you're going to help everyone, you're setting yourself up for failure because
Right.
you can't care. I think the biggest thing people go wrong in the healthcare field is like you can't care more than the patients 100% of the time. Like if they don't care and you're giving them 200% and they're giving you 20%, like you're going to feel so mentally drained. But
Right.
it's really hard to switch your mindset because you're going into healthcare, right? Because you want to help people, but you just can't help everyone.
Yeah, 100%. And even for me, knowing when I have a patient on my schedule that I know is going to give 100% and I know is going to put in the effort, like I look forward to treating that patient so
Yeah.
much because I know that they're putting in the work and they're more likely to succeed with PT versus like the patient that's like, I ask them every day, like, oh no, I haven't been doing my exercises. I'm just doing this because I want to get an MRI. And it's like, you are not giving it your best shot. And
No,
that doesn't motivate me either, you know? And so
totally.
it makes a difference, like which patients are actually motivated, and it helps us too. So if, you know, patients are coming in and they're not doing their exercises, they're half-assing their exercises in the clinic, which this is pretty rare for me because usually those patients won't actually come, like they'll stop showing up to sessions.
True. Yeah, like they'll just be the no-showers.
Yeah, exactly. There'll be the chronic no-showers that just eventually just dwindle away off the schedule. But it does make a difference to us when people actually put in the work and you can tell, you know,
Great.
because then
And
it
for
feels like
any
you're
profession. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
Question for you. Do you do anything to help combat compassion fatigue? Like, do you have anything in your self-care routine or, you know, just anything you do?
I mean, like I said, the reframing the mindset, that's a big one for me.
Okay.
But I don't know, like I just feel like taking care of myself first. And like I said in one of my other videos, like prioritizing my big things, which is like relationships, personal hygiene, and then sleep.
Yeah.
Like those are still to
Personal
this
hygiene's a good
day.
one.
Yeah. No, yeah, like showering, like, and
Yeah.
that includes like I wear makeup every day. And that's just something I do
Okay.
for myself because I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like I feel put together, like I feel ready for my day.
Look better, feel better.
Exactly. And like, sleep is super important. And when I notice that any one of those categories is suffering, that's when I know that I'm like, okay, I have to really take care of myself. Like, you know, maybe I need to work out more, like, you know, go to the sauna, whatever, but find time for yourself because that's when you know that those habits are suffering. So,
Totally.
yeah. How about
I
you?
noticed, yeah, I have actually been thinking about this more lately because I like this clinic I'm at right now a lot. I think it's just in general, like, I'm just getting so tired of people like not caring about their health and knowing they have to do all of this stuff, but then don't actually do it. And obviously, there's so many factors that go into that, right? Like finances, time, family, like, there's so many factors that go into it. And I'm just getting so drained at the end of the day because you have no time to yourself. And then I come home and then my boyfriend works from home. It's not around people. Whereas I'm around people literally for 11 straight hours or 10 straight hours. And then
Yeah.
I come home and I like don't want to talk. Like I need time. And so I realized like when he comes and talks to me at full speed once I get home, I like get a little snappy and like irritated because I'm like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I
Yeah.
just need a second. And
Yes.
so I think I'm gonna try going to like hot works or sauna or something like after work to like decompress because I feel it like getting to me, just like not having more me time.
Yes. I think that that always helps me because we've been going to the gym after work immediately.
Yeah,
And
I
like
need to do that.
it allows you to just move on right away. Like you're in a new environment, you're focusing on yourself, you're working out, and we work out for an hour after work every day. And by the time you get home, you're re energized because it doesn't even give you
Yeah,
time to like, oh no, this may be a bad thing, but maybe a good thing. Like you're not even like overthinking everything that happened that day. Like you're
yeah,
just like, okay, work done. Now, next thing, I'm going to the gym. I'm focusing on myself, right? And so
right.
I don't know, I really liked it and I think that that's possibly why I've been feeling really good even though like I've noticed
That
my
makes
patient
sense.
population here, like you said, some of them like don't prioritize their health as much as I would like, and it's just completely different patient population than I had on the West Coast, which was like total opposite of the spectrum where
Yeah.
they're like so healthy and they're getting joint replacements because they've been like pounding and running on their knees for years. And so, yeah, it's just been a little bit of an adjustment for me, I guess, too, in terms of that. But because we go to the gym every single day after work, I'm like, I don't even have time to process what just happened. And maybe it's a good thing because I'm not overthinking it. Like I'm just so busy. And then by the time I get home, I'm so tired that I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
time to shower, time for bed, and then, you know, do it again. So,
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I definitely,
yeah.
it's so hard for me. And this is a personal problem that I need to work on, but I get way too hungry after work and I don't bring enough
Oh,
food. So I like
yeah.
need to bring another meal or something for dinner before I go work out or do anything. Cause I'm like, oh, I'm so hungry. I just want to go home and eat. And then I get trapped at home and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's
If I went
anything I need to
home,
work
there
on.
is no chance that I'm going to the gym. Like, no chance.
Yeah.
But I would recommend bringing like a protein bar. That will hold me
Yeah.
over. I'll eat it right before my workout and that'll hold me over. And then I get home at like 8 and I'll make dinner.
I
But
know. I need to
yeah.
have a better system because I have had a system in place now and I eat my protein bar in the morning. And
Okay.
so I just need to bring more food. It's okay. I'll
Yes.
figure it out.
Bring all the snacks. But anyways, we also kind of wanted to talk about sort of dealing, or it wasn't as much dealing with tough patients because we already talked about that.
Yeah.
It was more getting attached to patients. And this one I actually had a personal story for
Oh, sure.
as a student. So, like I said, I get attached to people easily, but then I also am a very like emotional and empathetic person. And so I remember as a student at my first clinical, I worked with this patient through the entirety of his care. And he was just like your average Joe, honestly, like nothing special about him at all. But it was just because it was my
Nothing
first.
special.
No, like literally, I don't know why I got so attached, but I do think it's
Yeah,
probably
I know what
because
you
he was
mean.
my first patient that I completely oversaw his care.
For
And so
sure.
it was a first for me. So it was like ingrained in my brain. And like, I remember discharging him and didn't think anything in the moment, right? I was like, whatever. And then later that night, I cried and I'm like, what is
Aw.
going on? Why am I emotional? And I realized it was because to me, I'm like, I got close with this patient, because we get close with most of our patients since we see them like once or twice a week for a couple weeks. And I got to know him as a person and like I got to know this like
Yeah.
soul. And then it's almost like to my world, like they died. Like I discharged them. I'm never going to see them again, most likely. And I remember that being so sad to me at first, like as a student, like I'm like, what is
Yeah.
wrong with me? Why am I sad? Like this, I'm just going to have a million other patients. Like I can't just be sad when I discharge every single one. But
Yeah,
now
true.
it's like bittersweet. And there's definitely some patients where I'm like, oh my gosh, thank goodness they're off my schedule. Like I couldn't handle
Yeah,
another session with them because
totally.
it's like they didn't want to be there. But like I said, totally average Joe, like nothing crazy. Like, I just got to know each other. And then I remember as a student being like, wait, so I'm never going to see this person again after seeing them for like 2 months. And it was just a weird feeling. But like I said, that was like my very first patient. And I never really had something like that happen. And I was just like almost processing that as like, he's gone from
Yeah.
my life and I'm never going to see them again. But now it's more bittersweet where I'm like, okay, you're discharged and you're better. And now you're
Yeah.
blossoming into this beautiful butterfly and taking all the tools that I taught you and, doing great things. So now I'm like more happy. And now it's like we've seen hundreds of patients at this point that it doesn't even faze me anymore. But there's
Right.
definitely
The beginning
some.
is different.
Yeah, like more in Washington because I was there for 6 months and you've probably noticed this too is that you've like built more relationships with people because you're starting to see them for like other body
Yeah,
parts or like a
100%.
second time around. And in Washington, I had a couple people, honestly, like I just had the sweetest ladies there. I had a couple people that I got like super, super close with. And like they would legit cry on their last session. And I'm like, I don't even want to discharge you, but I
Oh,
have
that's
to.
so sad.
And this lady started
Yeah.
crying and she was like, Alice, like, are you staying here through November? Like, you're one of those people that if I had Thanksgiving dinner, like I would invite you because I know
Oh,
that you're not
that's
close
so
to your family.
sweet.
I was like, oh my God, get
That
out
makes
of
me want to
here. Like,
cry.
we need to stop. Yeah. And she started crying and I started crying. And I'm like, oh my God. And I have a patient waiting for me to like, come grab them in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But I also had like another patient that I know didn't have children of her own. And we just got so close. And it was almost weird because I was like, I didn't even feel like I was her PT. It was almost like a friend. I'm like, I
Right.
would love to go out with you. Like, she was so fun. She was
Yeah.
like probably in her 60s and she was just great. And she was one that gave me the bike because I told her I'd been like
Oh, yeah.
walking home sometimes or like having to ask people for rides and stuff because I don't have a car. And she gave me a bicycle. She's like, I got this bike years ago from this lady that like was really rich and just randomly bought new stuff and would use it for a couple weeks and then never touch it again. And she gave it to her and she's like, I haven't used it. Like, please take it off my hands. And I'm like, are you sure? And she was so sweet. She like brought it to the clinic and everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're an angel. Like, you're saving my life right now. And so
yeah, it's weird being a travel physical therapist too. And I'm sure like other travel health professionals like would relate to this, but it's such a bittersweet, like getting really good patients that you vibe and connect with and are just good quality patients. And you get attached to them and then you have to leave or then you discharge them, which is good. But like leaving when you want to see it through is like the hardest part.
I just remembered right now, I'm seeing this kid that I started seeing my first week here, and I just broke the news to them that I'm leaving in January.
Aww.
And that is another thing. Like, I don't get to see this through. Like, I saw him from day one when he like couldn't weight bear. Like, he has already come a long way, but I'm like, I wish I could see the entire so it's an ACL, the entire rehab through. Yes, because it's like so crazy to think back to like, oh my gosh, remember day one when you were terrified to even let me touch your
literally couldn't move.
And I'm like, I got the boring part of your rehab, you know, like all the table exercises stuff. But it's kind of a bummer because I'm like, I would love to see the entire rehab journey through with you. And the mom really likes me. And we just, I don't know, we get along well and he's a good kid. And I'm like, yeah, I'm leaving in January and I'm sure you'll be in great hands with whoever you go to next. But it's always a bummer having to say bye to those patients. Yeah. And they're like, oh my gosh, wait, what? You're going to leave? Like, how do I get you to stay? Like, how can I convince you? And I'm like, you can't.
Literally can't. No, that reminds me. This one patient, actually, I just discharged him and he, I just discharged him and he was like, well, I'll be back next year. And I was like, okay, yeah, you can definitely do that.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be here for you. But unfortunately, I will not be. Yeah. And he was like, oh, well, then I'm not coming back. And I was like, well, there's other great therapists. And he was like, no, I'm not coming back. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's awkward to me because they'll be like, oh, well, like I'll get a patient from another therapist. And this is not necessarily like at this job, just in general. Like sometimes it'll happen where a patient really vibes with you over somebody else. And there's also patients that don't vibe as much with me as they would with other people. But they'll sometimes be like, oh, well, I liked having you. Like, can we just switch all my appointments to be with you? And I'm like, no, sorry. Like my schedule's full or whatever. It didn't work out. And that kind of can happen too, because people like do get attached to their PTs.
Yeah,
and, like,
for sure.
In person. But anyways.
But okay, yes. What I was gonna say was, wait, I had a question for you too. Okay, I'm gonna go back to what I was gonna say though.
Okay.
But in terms of attachment and compassion fatigue, like that can be such a hurdle. Like I had this one, and as a travel physical therapist, like it's so much different as a travel PT also, because you literally have to leave. But I had this one patient. I just like inherited him when I got to the clinic, and he had a lot of psychosocial issues, trauma. It was a above the knee amputation. And a lot of just like no family support, a lot of things going on. It was really sad. And they were frequently talking about how they just wanted to die. And so heavy. But we started like doing new exercises and different things that they hadn't done before. And then I remember one day they just like kind of switched and were like, oh, I actually like coming to PT now, because they were starting to like do more things at home that like I would show them in clinic and whatnot. And then I had to leave. And it was so sad. And it's just like, you wish you could just take them along with you to clinics and just like follow them.
Right. Yeah.
But it's sad and unfortunate. But you have to kind of detach too, because you do have to leave. So you can't get like too attached.
Exactly. And that's kind of also how I feel, not only with patients, but also friends that I make. It's sucks because I feel like part of me is like,
that too.
Alice, don't get too attached because you're just going to have to leave. And like, maybe that's a bad mentality, but it is true. But there are some friends that I made that we still have group chats and like we still talk and we'll like reach out and things like that. But sometimes part of me is like, if I'm only here for 3 months, like, is it worth it, you know?
Right.
But that's another perk of like you staying in Florida longer is that you're in the same place and you're not up and moving as much. So you like can maintain those friendships and grow those friendships and patient provider relationships too.
True.
Like even in Wisconsin, I haven't made a single friend. Like outside of work, I love my coworkers. Actually, we were supposed to go out with them tonight, but then I forgot. Anyways.
Okay.
But I forgot today's Saturday night. Look at
I
how
know.
being productive on a Saturday night.
I know.
But yeah, like because all my friends are in Chicago, I just haven't even made the effort because I'm like, first of all, who the heck am I going to find in my area of Wisconsin? I'm not going to tell you guys where that is, but who am I going to find to be friends with? And it's like, I have all my friends and my family close by. So like, of course, I'm going to prioritize those relationships. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel when I'm like, I'm only going to be here for 3 months. Like, do I even want to get close with this person? Because then I'm just going to have to like leave again, you know, and have to be a long distance friendship type of thing. But yeah, so that's another perk of like staying longer.
Yeah. One thing I've realized just being a therapist and working with people all day, I definitely have, and I don't know if this is also hormonal. I don't know. I'm sure there's other factors involved, but I was never a super duper emotional person. Like I am a very true Scorpio. I would not say I'm cold because I care about people a lot, but I can shut my emotions off very easily, which good or bad depends on the situation. But I feel like now I have to force myself to get emotional because throughout the day, I'm just like, I have to stay composed and talk to people and
just make it through the day.
Their traumas and make it through. Yeah. And not get too involved. So I was thinking about it recently because I was like, when was the last time I cried? Like, I literally don't know. It's probably been months. I'm not a crier regardless. So I'm like, when was the last time I freaking cried? So I've been trying to put on one thing that gets me crying and emotional and lets things out is Grey's Anatomy. So I've been watching more Grey's Anatomy just to get my like emotions out and cry and like feel better. And then I'm like, okay, I got my cry for the month or whatever.
Perfect. Yeah. Honestly, I don't even remember the last time I cried. Like it's been a while. But for me, it doesn't always feel like a release of emotion. Like I don't even know what I do to like when I have that like pent up energy. Yeah. Like sometimes I just need to work out, honestly. And like
interesting.
Yeah. Like that usually helps me or like go for a run. Like
I would never think about doing that.
Yeah, but like, that's rare. Like it'll be rare, but sometimes I'll just randomly get like a burst of energy and be like, I need to go on a run. Oh my gosh. But I saw this thing that was like, there's people like something about like people in their late 20s. And it's like, they're either getting married, having babies or running marathons. And I'm like,
yes.
Honestly, yes. Like that is 3 like very solid categories of like where people are in life. Like
for sure.
I'm like, okay, I'm definitely not either one of the first 2. So I was actually thinking about signing up for a half marathon.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But part of me is like, bitch, you can't even run 3 miles. Like, I mean, I can run 3 miles, but past that,
but like, yeah,
my body gives out. My brain long gave out before that, but my body gives out at 3 miles. And I'm like, do I want to torture myself with that? But like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't want to live a life that I didn't at least try to run a half marathon.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a thought. Maybe I'll sleep on it a couple more nights and I'll be like,
always start with the 5K and then 10K and then work your way up. You know,
that's what I was thinking.
Start more closer to where you're at now.
Yes. Yeah. But anyways, just a thought. Just a thought.
Yeah, that's funny. I've never thought about running to release energy. I literally,
give it a year, Mel. Give it a year or 2. You're still a youngin'. Just kidding.
I legit, and I've done this since I was younger, but I legit have to dedicate like a day or end of the night to like decompress and like get emotional. But I have to literally put on Grey's Anatomy or some sad movie to get it out, or else I literally can't get out. It's so weird. I don't know. Maybe
it's
that's just
like
a me thing.
What's it called? It's oh my gosh, I can't think of the name, but like a source for you to like go through to get your cry out.
Yes.
You know, like it's
for
just
sure.
like there. It starts with a V, a vessel. It's a vessel.
Oh, vessel. Yes.
That is your vessel.
Yeah. Grey's Anatomy. I'm forcing myself to cry.
Yes. Hey, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Well, that is kind of all for this episode.
Yeah.
We wanted to share this because this is a very real thing in the healthcare field and just in general in caring professions. But we really hope you guys have a lovely, lovely holiday season.
Yes.
We just had Thanksgiving and we have a bunch more holidays coming up in the month of December. We know the holidays can also be a hard time for some people. And we just want to acknowledge that and let you guys know that we are always here and you guys can reach out to us whenever, wherever on any social media platform. We feel like compassion fatigue and burnout was important to address because it is very real in our profession as well as others, as we said, and especially in the healthcare field, especially this time of year. Like it just gets really busy and crazy around the holidays. And so we just thought this was a good topic and we wanted to share some of our interesting patient stories with you guys as well. Cause we got lots of those. But look out for next week's episode. We have a very exciting guest that is also a doctor, but not a physical therapist. And as always, don't forget to rate us and follow us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you like to listen to us. We love you and we appreciate you. And that is all for today. Bye.
Bye.